Hello everybody and welcome back to another brand new video on the channel. Not so long ago I talked about watching the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Well, it has been watched. I'm gonna tell you guys exactly what I think about it. First off, I'm just really surprised at how long it took me to actually watch this. I'm pretty sure I made at least 3 to 4 videos just based around the Five Nights at Freddy's movie and what I think the speculations will be. Now it's been almost 10 years since the original Five Nights at Freddy's came out, and we only just got the film after many years of speculations in terms of when it's actually going to release. Now, just in case you guys really need to rush through this video, get straight to the point of what I think about it, alright, here's my quick brief summary. Every single scene with Vanessa, 10 out of 10, every other scene mediocre. There you have it. But anyway, if you decide you want to stick around for the full length review, then let me tell you a little bit more about it. Okay, so starting off, the scenes that contained Vanessa were actually really okay, I'll stop now. But anyway, I'm sure this has been said a million times over before, but the visuals and the overall aesthetic are absolutely fantastic. The movie does look beautiful even with a small budget. The people over at production that were tasked with actually building and designing these one-to-one scale animatronics are very talented individuals. In fact, across the web I have actually seen approximations that in reality, if you were to do an actual one-to-one animatronic scale of a Five Nights at Freddy's character, it would cost around $25 million, which is, oh hey, exactly the budget for this film. Everything, even down to small atoms, was perfected and made authentic to the original. Whilst watching the film, you can definitely tell that this was a film made directly for the fans. I'm not trying to say if you don't have the slightest clue about any type of FNAF lore that you're not going to enjoy the movie, but you sure as hell are not going to enjoy the movie as much as someone who's been keeping up with Five Nights at Freddy's along the years. Now, the film being called Five Nights at Freddy's, obviously there are going to be tons of references, but let me tell you, there is tons and tons of references, and also a nice bit of cameo from the likes of MatPat as well as Corey Kenshin. Corey Kenshin was obviously nice to see, but I was expecting a man to be there. After all, watching the trailers you did see him in there, but MatPat on the other hand I was not expecting and was very pleasantly surprised. But I guess it does absolutely make sense to actually put him in there since he contributed so much to the FNAF community over the years. In terms of performances, they did kind of fall flat, which I will talk about later, but some standout roles were definitely William Afton played by Matthew Lillard, as well as Abby Schmidt by Piper Rubio. Considering this was literally her debut film, I think she did a great job. Actually, I take back the thing I said about performances. It's not really to do with the performance of the actors, most of them did try their best. It's just to do with the writing. It's pretty terrible. I would say that if you're part of a younger audience, being a FNAF fan and a horror fan, then this is something you will absolutely enjoy to the bone. Not saying that teens and adults can't enjoy this just as much, especially if they're a big FNAF fan, but having a PG-13 rating, it was obviously tailored towards a younger audience, and it's not even a PG-13 that really pushes the boundaries. It's just very mild. And if you're looking for a true horror film that will really make you fearful, as well as something that has a deep complex narrative, then there really isn't here much for you. Honestly, if you start combining all little snippets of FNAF lore directly from the games, fan theories, as well as actual novels written, then you could make some really intense and complex narrative that's enjoyable. Not to say that the story is too uninteresting, but it becomes super stale at some point, and it just tries to go too many other ways. In terms of actual FNAF lore, it only really covers the basics. Now obviously I'm not saying you're gonna put the entire goddamn lore of FNAF into one movie. That is just not physically possible. The film could have focused a lot more on actually interesting characters such as William Afton and Vanessa, but again and again it just kept making up this stale old boring cliche characters like the auntie and the group of people who try to rob the pizzeria. These characters have only one purpose, and that's to drive the plot forward a little bit with very specific actions. So we got this auntie who's kind of like a villain antagonist character who wants to try and get Abby under her wing in order to receive some sort of government benefit per month, which doesn't make much sense at all considering it's literally implied she is well off. So why would she be going through all this effort? In fact, I think it's made very clear the fact that she only wants Abby for these benefits and nothing else. She genuinely just doesn't like that kid. Meeting up with these random ass robbers, she even considers killing Mike just to get to Abby. I mean, goddamn, these government paychecks must be really insane. Now, another time that the plot went absolutely bonkers in this film is when Vanessa was talking to Mike about how he should let Abby roam around free and, have fun with animatronics. They literally have a 2-minute montage of the animatronics, Abby, Vanessa, and Mike just building a massive fort. Now, I guess this does make sense to symbolize the fact that the ghosts inside these massive animatronic costumes are in fact kids, and obviously building a fort is something they would do. But to me, it just simply doesn't hit right. What is it trying to do? Some sort of dark comedy contrasting happiness with sadness? Is it trying to be frightening? Is it meant to be a drama? It just doesn't really know where to go. But anyway, so they have this little happy giggly scene building the fort. Straight afterwards, they come out with Vanessa and Mike, and then Vanessa just casually says, okay, how about you keep Abby away or else I'm going to shoot you. Now, for a little background context, I'm pretty sure Abby got shocked by a guitar or something, signaling that she's in danger around animatronics. But Vanessa literally told them it's fine. I think she even encouraged it. But then no, after having a great time, telling them to hang around with animatronics, she's like, okay, if you do this again, I'll kill you, because that makes sense. The pacing again is something that doesn't really know what to do. It goes back and forth, back and forth. The first half of the film starts off really quickly, and then the last half is more of a slow pace. I wish the pacing did spend a lot more time in the pizzeria instead of just meaningless conversations which aren't that enjoyable because the writing isn't that great. The actual character of Mike Schmidt is also quite unlikable in this film. I do understand the fact he had some trauma with his brother being kidnapped in the past. I mean, trust me, the movie definitely reminds you, showing like 10 scenes of him just chasing kids in the forest. But anyway, while he's working at the mall, he sees a little kid being dragged away by his father, so he does a reasonable thing, runs after them, and MMA tackles him into a water fountain. Right at the beginning, he makes it very clear that no matter what, Abby is a very key component of his life, and she is something he is not willing to lose after losing his brother, which he does actualize more in the ending. But around the halfway point, he just completely goes 180 on that, gets into a little cheeky argument with her, and just gets her auntie to take her away, which is super deep. I don't think a little falling out between the two will directly result in him calling over his auntie to just straight up take her away. Now, coming on to Vanessa, I wish she was way more interesting than she was and had a lot more of a personality. She was pretty much there just to tell Mike all the FNAF lore. She was like a little pocket dictionary that Mike could pull out any time and ask about, oh, what's the bio of 87? Oh, what are the Springlock suits? Other than saving the old character, she didn't really do much herself. What's interesting is that in the film, William Afton's daughter is Vanessa and not Elizabeth Afton. The film barely had any jump scares, and the jump scares it did have were all pretty much Balloon Boy. The film didn't have too many kills, and most of the kills were done by the cupcake. Whilst these two facts are hilarious and it's amazing that they are here, this should illustrate to you that unlike the original game, this wasn't really meant to be a horror. God, I just started ranting, didn't I? Well, I'm sorry about that. I know that makes me sound like I really did dislike this film, but it's not the case at all. There are just some things I wanted to mention on a critical perspective that I wanted to get off my mind. But anyway, let's talk about some more things which I did like. Coming up are the transitions. The transitions used in this film were absolutely magnificent, and they did not disappoint. Ones like transitioning into a forest from the Pining in Nebraska poster was really neat, and the one where I transitioned from the outside glowing Fazbear's Pizzeria sign to the inside of a dark corridor. And aside from these, all of them were great as well. I think in general, the editing was definitely one of the strong points of the film. The Freddy Fazbear's establishment is on an absolutely grand scale and is very faithful to the original. No CGI, no BS, just straight up amazing set design. From the security guard's office to the main dining area to the stage, all of it was crafted with perfection. My one pet peeve with this is that while the establishment itself is done really well, the lighting could have been better. It's just way too bright throughout the whole film. Considering the fact that the original game was very dark and kind of played around with the whole thing, you can't see it so you're more afraid of it. This film was very bright, even in places where it really shouldn't have been. I also think how the whole dream concept theory kind of thing that Mike had going on was a really interesting idea. It was a really unique way of solving an old case by kind of repeating the whole dream back and forth. I also like the fact that as the narrative progressed and Mike was more aware of the things characters around him, his dream kept on becoming more clear. And I really did like William Afton in this film. It's just the end was pretty stinky, especially with that goofy ass robotic voice he was using, but he served his character perfectly well. So there you have it. Once again, I'm gonna mention this, a movie for the fans. Aesthetically, the film was greatly pleasing to the eye and did contribute some new and unique ideas. It did make some fantastic references to original, such as Mike waking up at 6 AM every day, and including some interesting cameos as well. Sadly, during the runtime at some point it did turn into a bit of a mess where I wasn't sure where it was going, and the writing did take an absolute plummet. And I truly wish, apart from Mike and Abby, the story spent more time fleshing out important characters. But all in all, in terms of its role as providing an adaptation to the silver screen with Five Nights at Freddy's, it did its job. Considering the difficulties in production throughout the years as well as the limited budget, it did a good job. But was it really worth waiting 10 years for? Not really. Well, there you have it guys, here are some of my thoughts and opinions on the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Let me know your own opinions down in the comment section down below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and I will see you guys at a later video. In a later video, sorry. Goodbye. Vanessa or Toy Chica, who is more of a bad bitch?